Welcome to Channel 24, and today I'm delighted to present you my guest. He's a great friend of Ukraine and former Lithuanian Foreign Minister, Gabrielius Landsbergis. Gabrielius, it's a pleasure to have you here in Kyiv, and I want to just say to our audience, we're sitting right now in the shelter, in a parking spot, which is also a bomb shelter for a lot of people. So if you're going to hear some noises, we cannot affect on that, so just accept it. Gabrielius, it's a pleasure to have you here. And I was planning I had the structure of our conversation, but I think that overnight drone attack in Poland makes some corrections. So what happened, it's around 10 drones were crossing Ukrainian-Polish border from Russia, and they entered eastern part of Poland. Some of them were shot down, some of them didn't. From your perspective, is that Russia kind of testing NATO again, or was that a deliberate attack?
So the technical details of this incursion probably will be revealed later, as to how many were shot down, what happened to the rest of them, and how the whole operation worked out. But I think we have enough information to say that was deliberate. That was a deliberate, aggressive act against a NATO country. We've seen drones entering territories of Lithuania, Latvia, Poland. Usually, there was an explanation. Either it was due to the EV, electronic warfare,
yes,
or something like that. Straight of course. Now, having 10 or I've heard 14 drones crossing the border, clearly that was intentional. Now, as to what Putin wants to achieve with this attack, it's one might only guess. I would probably see two possible explanations. One is try to escalate to establish new norm, like it happened with the so-called shadow activity, so hybrid war, where in a couple of years we got used to it. So whenever there's an arson, we say, well, there's just another arson in NATO countries. So now the same thing with drones. It's just another incursion. Or another explanation could be that due to the fact that in Poland there's quite a lot of tensions, political tensions between the president and the government, or maybe throwing a lot of fuel on the fire, so to say, could one hope to, for example, to limit Polish assistance to Ukraine. Imagine if a conversation would start, well, maybe Russians are attacking us because we're helping Ukraine, maybe we should do less of that. Especially when Poland is a vital transport track to bring in resources. So maybe that is what Putin wants to achieve. Whether that will happen, well, we'll see. Hope not.
But to be honest, when you're opening the news, today people are discussing only two things, new iPhone and drone attack in Poland. And to be honest, people are very scary in Poland. I don't know if that's going to affect helping the fact of helping Ukraine. Is that ever possible the government will think that way, the Polish government?
Well, I think that could be potentially what Putin might be hoping, right? That is one way to look at it. What I would hope, the reaction that I would hope to see from the Polish government or even NATO is what you would be able to call a double down. So when you're pushed, you don't take a step back, you don't leave territory, you move forward. So very clear answer as to what could be happening because of the drone attack against Poland is finally offering a sky shield to Ukraine. It's much better to take down the drones, not above Poland, but above Ukraine.
Well, then I want to touch one of your interviews to my colleagues, where you said that West have to admit that they have failed. In all this war, in helping Ukraine, in the resilience or resistance to Russia. If they're going to admit they failed, what's next?
Well, I'm saying that the strategy, the thinking, the way that we in the West try to navigate the whole geopolitical change that has been taking place, I established that there are three lines of hope from the West, especially from Europe. So first one is that we hope that Americans will fix the whole thing. Even when President Trump says that he's not going to do that, that it's Europe's problem, that he's withdrawing from Europe, he basically says that he doesn't care about Ukraine that much. We still hope that with enough charm, with enough persuasion, we're able to turn that around. The second strategy is that Putin will get tired, or he will be content. All right, so maybe we can offer him land, not our land, but Ukrainian land, and he will say, well, this is enough for me, I've lost so many men, and I don't want to fight anymore. So, and if you see, the debate in the public where people are saying, well, look, Baltic States were occupied and they were emerged as free countries in Europe and NATO, and they're completely fine. So maybe that will happen to Donbass as well. And I'm horrified. I'm seriously horrified by the idea and by the audacity by certain Western leaders to actually speak on behalf of, for example, my country, using that example. And the last point is that we are hoping that Ukrainians will somehow manage this miraculously, so that we don't need to do anything. And my question was always, so I don't think that we're winning with Trump. I don't think that we're winning with Putin. The only thing that is why the war is not yet in Europe is because you're fighting for us. And my main criticism is always, so what is our real plan? What is our option to fight?
So the options you told me right now doesn't look like a plan B for Europe, actually.
No. So basically, if we have a plan A, that's Trump, the plan B is, appeasing Putin, plan C, or overwhelming plan is, so that Ukrainians will do the fighting for us. And I'm saying, okay, so, you can have a plan D, but just some sort of a plan where we would say, okay, fine, if Trump is no longer interested, if Putin is continuing to fight, and Ukrainians are getting, really, really tired of the war, so where are us in this? Where is the real coalition of the willing, capable, and ready to change the balance of this war?
As long as you touched the coalition of the willing, the Times made kind of their own data and interviews with the Ukrainians who said that Ukrainians kind of see the coalition of the willing as a kind of a mockery. And after the latest very deadly Russian attacks in Kyiv and other Ukrainian cities, and yesterday they just killed people who were waiting for pensions. So basically, we see peace very far away, more than ever. So why are European leaders meeting again and again and discussing again and again this coalition of the willing, the structure that will not work?
Well, that's a very good question. I think that we are, the thing that is called the strategic communication. And it's important, during times of war to send messages to your population, right? So we're doing the right thing, we're right there where you think that we need to be, government is doing the right things. But with time, the expectation is that you're doing the right thing and then you're explaining it strategically to the people. So both things are in parallel. But as time goes by, it appears that you do more explaining of the things that you actually are not doing. So strategic communication is all. Nice picture is more important than the real thing. So we're creating this pseudo-reality of where we are kind of helping Ukraine, but not really. We're going to fight Russians, but not actually. We're going to give security guarantees, but most likely they will not mean anything. And I'm so frustrated every single time when there is a new headline that, some new thing has came up, while in reality, unfortunately, nothing major has taken place. You mentioned Ukrainians fighting alone, and there has been a very famous speech of Winston Churchill in the 1940s when Britain was attacked for the first time by Nazi Germany, and Americans were not there. They refused even to send 10 old ships to United Kingdom because they thought that, then Nazis will think that they are part of the war, and they did not want that. And Churchill made a speech to the parliament where he said that we're going to fight. And he explained how Britain might be fighting this war. And at the end he said, if needed, will do that alone. So, unfortunately, Ukraine might be in this position right now. The world might turn around. Europe might turn around. Might actually start doing some, real things. Americans might turn around. Who knows? But at this time, well, you're holding a lot on your shoulders.
Mm-hmm. Gabrielius, do you remember one of the Ukrainian soldiers at YES conferences told to the audience that Europe, they are like a kid who's waking up in the morning and it's asking for 5 more minutes, and he's falling asleep and then waking up again, and it's like 5 more minutes and falling asleep. Mm-hmm. Don't you have the impression that Europe not sleeping, but they are in coma?
Yeah, I do have that. Because, in February, during Munich Security Conference, and around that time, American administration, and not just President Trump, but, Secretary of War, now that we have to call him, Vice President and others, very clearly stated that Europe can no longer depend on the United States for its security. For me, it sounded like a very clear policy. I wish these words would not have been spoken, but they were. And I think that this was the only awakening that Europe should have needed ever. This is it. The world is different. We have to think about how we are going to survive this. It has never been more dangerous after the Second World War. Our greatest ally is leaving Europe, and our greatest enemy is moving forward. And we have to figure it out. And I used exactly the same word when I commented back then. If that doesn't wake up, maybe we are already dead.
The decision of the American president to hold military assistance, American military assistance to Baltic States, was that a gift to Putin?
Oh, yes, absolutely. There's no other way. People are explaining, that hasn't been a lot of money, right? So it's more symbolic. And sure, we're increasing our defense spending by quite a lot. So we are able to cover the loss. But what does it tell to Putin? It tells him that those who are closest to the war, those who have been spending 4% of their GDP, those who have always done their lessons, came first in class, were always prepared, will be punished first. So I think that Putin is rather happy about the symbolism of that message. And again, people in my country are shocked and debating how should we react to this, what should we be doing. I said the only thing that we should be doing is now preparing for the troop removal. Because what is upcoming is Americans are going to review how many troops will remain in each European country. And my country also has American troops. And I think it's very likely that we will see a reduction in those troops.
That's a good point. How people in Lithuania right now is reacting on everything. Do they see a threat, a serious threat from Russia? What is the mood there?
Yeah, I think so. That people are probably outside Ukraine, people in Poland and Baltic States understand the Russian threat the best. What I'm worried about is that I have a little bit of the same feeling that I had in 2021 when I was talking to Ukrainian officials who were saying, look, let's not talk about the war too much because it harms our, economy, investors are getting scared and people are getting restless, so let's manage that. So, and then it all changed after the war, so basically the reality struck. And I do understand where it's coming from. And now I'm hearing the same things in my own country, where if we talk about the need for, building up our reserves, so, training more people so that we should be building our, drone army. We should be actually, what I advocate is that we need closer military ties to Ukraine. Where I would people accepted that as a joke, but I don't think that it's a joke. I would like my country to have security guarantees from Ukraine. I'm not sure whether we can compensate.
So not vice versa.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, for Russians, at this stage, to know that if they cross the Lithuanian border, they would find, thousands of Ukrainian drone operators with Ukrainian drones, that is a very serious argument because these people do know, how to fight. They are not scared of Russians. They've been doing that for years and years. And if we're together, right, so you can doubt about others, right? So you can doubt about Americans, you can doubt about, Germans, whatever. I mean, Russians can doubt. They will never doubt about Ukrainians.
Yeah, speaking about Germans, actually, have you heard about the Bild podcast where two influencers just recently had a fight on air, and one of them said it's better to be under occupation rather than dead, when the other were fighting with him, saying that we have to be mobilized. The question was about the mobilization, to be ready to fight, the basic, not mobilization, just to be ready to fight. And the other guy said, listen, it's the question of democracy. Where do you think all these debates are heading for?
Well, I mean, it's always easier to have those debates in the countries that did not fight Russia.
Yes.
We had the pleasure in 1940s. We had 2 occupations by Russia then, and the government's decision when Russians posted an ultimatum so that they are basically occupying the country was to demobilize the army, to let the army go. So we did not have an official war with Russia. But what happened was that tens of thousands of Lithuanian young people decided to join partisan groups, go to the forest, and take the fight, well, with what they had. And, we usually say that they saved Lithuanians' honor because they proven the point that we did not accept the occupation.
Yes.
We did not want Russians, and we fought. And for them, it was better to die than to live in occupation. And thousands of them perished, either in the forest or then they being sent out to Siberia, into gulags, those who remained alive. Now they're probably one of the biggest heroes that Lithuania has. So it is clear where my country stands about freedom and our future.
Yeah, people don't know what is that Russian occupation.
No,
basically.
they don't.
They don't.
Yeah, and I've used the example. When it was Mark Rutte who said, that about the Baltic States, that they were occupied and they emerged, free countries. Well, that didn't help my, grandmother that spent all her youth above the Arctic Circle, when she was deported there with her family. So, and it did not help hundreds of thousands of people who were deported with her, all across from Kazakhstan to wherever else Stalin wanted to put them. That didn't help the thousands of young people that were perished while fighting Russians. So it's a tough line to say for somebody who has not experienced that.
If US troops reduced in Europe, if the sanctions will fade, and if the American assistance to Ukraine will also kind of melt, let's call it that way, how do you see Europe's post-American assistance reality?
When it comes to numbers do not look very bad, right? So, we are still seeing European countries sending assistance to Ukraine. Unfortunately, there's always very little transparency to what is actually being sent. Mm-hmm. So we don't know. Ukrainians are saying a lot of thank yous when it's not clear, right? Are we sending the right things? Is it enough? What else is needed?
Do you think it's the right thing not to have that a lot of transparency?
Well, that was the way that it was.
Bad?
It was. In war, it is very difficult to have a lot of transparency, right? Because if you're very transparent, then you're transparent to your enemy as well. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's understandable why Ukrainians are keeping this fog of war as to how much and what is being sent. But then for us on the European side, it's then very difficult to assess, who is doing what. Some countries who are at the lowest level of support to Ukraine, they're saying, well, we're doing something, but we'll never declare what we're doing. And it raises questions whether they are really doing that, or it's just, again, strategic communication, kind of to calm people down. I'm advocating that the best thing to do now is to do what Denmark started, so-called Danish model, to invest money directly into Ukraine. Most of the attacks that are happening, and that number is rising constantly, I think it has reached, if I'm not mistaken, roughly 70% of equipment damages done by Ukrainians are done by drones, with drones. Previously, it was more of artillery, so that means Western equipment. So I think that there's a change, that more and more kills on Russian side are because of Ukrainian drones. That means that it's most effective piece of equipment, and the only thing that is needed is more of it and better quality. And we can help with that because it's just money that we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, drones become a game changer in this war. Yeah, everybody's, learning from that, discovering. Yeah, how would you, as a former Minister of Foreign Affairs, how would you describe the international policy of the United States right now?
Well, I don't like to personalize that much the decisions of President Trump. I've traced it in a way back that Americans have felt that they reached their peak power, I would say early 2010s, where there was a mind shift in Washington as to how much power can actually United States maintain across the globe. So we've seen pivot to Asia by Obama. We've seen red lines in Syria that were not respected by Assad, and nothing has happened because of that. We've seen attack on Georgia in 2008, a first attack on Ukraine, 14, and recently. So there was a chain of events that basically tells that United States, in its current form, is unable to secure its interests globally. And President Trump is the latest, a very radical manifestation of this policy. President Obama said very similar things 10 years ago, but he said that extremely politely. So we thought that, because he's polite, maybe we shouldn't be listening. Now President Trump is saying, again, very similar things, but in very angry tone, and now we're shocked. So I think it's not entirely right to say that this is President Trump doing. But what is happening is that Americans show very limited interest in Europe, very limited interest in European future, despite the risks. And I think that we'll see less of American involvement in European continent, and we have to be ready to accept that, prepare for that, and cover for that.
They don't want to accept that in the European capitals.
No, as I said before.
Yeah, as you said before, yes.
And our plan A is just to try to avoid that. And I'm sure I understand that, right? So I use the example of President Zelensky, who is also doing the same thing, right? So he does not want to lose Americans. He's not in a position to say that, okay, we don't need Americans anymore. He needs to do as much as he can in order to maintain American interest. That's why mineral deal, whatever that is, that's why all the other things. Right, so it's understandable, but the reality, unfortunately, forces us to look for other things.
Gabrielius, just final question: are you convinced that the end of Russian war in Ukraine will reshape the global order, and in what way? What we're going to see? Well, it depends from the outcome, but what we're going to see from your perspective?
Absolutely, I think it's already doing that. It's already reshaping the world's order. Days after, I don't remember now exactly the day, days after the full-scale invasion started, I posted on social network a post where I said that this war will end either with Putin's demise or with Western demise.
I would add, or a Chinese one, in some extent.
Well, China is still winning the war.
Yes.
It's still in the winner's seat of this of the whole situation. It's incredible. But I know it sounded radical then. It still sounds radical now. This proposition of a very clear cut of black and white. But I believe that this is still the case.
Well, thank you so much for your time,
Thank you.
for being with us in this shelter, and yeah, I wish you a safe stay in Kyiv. Thank you so much.
Thank you.